Hello, I am Miss Mamaga and welcome to my class. I'm so happy and excited to meet all of you here today. I'm going to start with the presentation of what my math classroom will look like and entail this year. So to get started, first off, I will be using the Common Core standards in my classroom. I'm sure many of you thinking, what are these standards and why do we even have them? The Common Core state standards were created to set high standards for students that are consistent across all different states. They also provide us teachers, you parents, and the students a clear set of expectations. They were created so we know what to teach and at what grade level. We also know from the standards what the students were working on the year before and what they'll be expected to do the next year. Next on what math looks like for a second grader. So your second grade children will be working with base 10 numbers. This includes counting in fives, tens, and hundreds. They will learn to recognize that digits in each different place value stands for a different amount, such as the number 853. This stands for 8 hundreds, 5 groups of tens, and 3 ones. The second graders will also build their automaticity with addition and subtraction. They will learn how to use standard units of measurement such as centimeters and inches, feet, and meters. And finally, in our class we'll work on describing and analyzing different shapes. This includes looking at how many sides, what the angles are of both two-dimensional and three-dimensional shapes. Finally on this slide are the math practices, and these are the common processes that students will use throughout all their years in school. All the practices will be taught in different depths at all ages. They build upon each other as the students progress through school. Next, our classroom focuses for this year. We'll focus on these three areas: the 21st century skills, STEM learning, and teacher quality. So first, 21st century skills, that these are a set of skills that your students will acquire to be able to think and reason mathematically. This includes critical thinking, reasoning, forming arguments, skill flexibility, teamwork, and communication. Next, STEM learning. I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, what is this? It stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The idea of STEM learning is that math plays a vital role in our everyday lives. Just think about how many decisions you made today. How many math problems did you do today, such as counting change, calculating the time, or even calculating the distance you had to travel to work today? My job as your child's math teacher is to teach them that math has a place in our lives. An example of this is that scientists and engineers use math every day to solve our real-world problems. So how do I plan to use this? I plan to use it through something called a problem of the day, which will include an image or a video that is enticing and engaging for your children. It gets them to think about real-world situations and problems. It also helps make math interesting for them. So teacher quality. I believe that the most important factor in my math class is me. I have the power to influence your child's success at math. So I plan to be enthusiastic about math, be understanding about every student's positions and their different passions, and most importantly, be knowledgeable about what I am teaching them. So moving on here, what my math classroom will look like. Like I have said before, real-world problems are very important to me. They help children see how math can be used in our everyday lives, that what we're learning in our classroom isn't just something that they'll learn once and then forget about. We will learn the math skills and we will use them every day. Another thing I'll use in my class are math manipulatives. These are things your children will be working with in my class. We won't just be reading from our textbooks and doing worksheets. I believe that students learn best when they work hands-on and form their own experiences with math. Yes, I'm sure we'll have to do some worksheets at some point, but I also plan to work with pictures and different manipulatives such as blocks, cubes, base 10 representatives, and also technology. There are many different great math applications out there that your children will work with and practice their math skills with. These applications engage your children and make the learning and practice fun for them. Problem solving is a huge factor in our classroom. Your children will learn to work through the problem solving process. They will be required to solve problems outside of the classroom in their everyday lives, where they'll be able to apply the skills we are learning in class to their everyday situations. The problem solving process works through first understanding the problem, next coming up with a plan to solve the problem, then implementing that plan, and finally reflecting on the problem and their solution to that problem. There are many different ways that they will learn to work through a math problem, such as acting it out, drawing a picture, making a table, finding different patterns, working backwards, and the list just goes on. So finally on this slide, I'm going to talk about parent involvement. This is the number one thing to me. I need your help to teach your children the importance of math and to learn to persevere through their problems. Parent involvement is key to your child's success. I want you to be interested and up to date on what your children are learning in my classroom. I want you to be able to be involved in the learning process. They might be bringing home math problems in which they may need your help, or they just might want to tell you about what we learned today. And I need your help to keep them interested in math and want to learn more about math. Next, this slide is something I will be using every day in my classroom. It's called Math Moves. Math Moves help children form a deeper understanding by communicating their thinking and also learning about the thinking of others. So there are 5 different math moves. I'll talk through each one. The first one is repeat. An example of this would be me asking a student, could you repeat what your classmate just said? The next one is agree or disagree. I'll be using this to ask students, do you agree with me or another student, or do you disagree? And why is that? Another one I'll be using is add on. An example of this is, could you tell me more? Or can you explain that to me? This just gets them thinking more deeply about their answer and how they arrived at that answer. The next one I'll be using is called revoice. This is me restating what a student said in different words to make it more clear for students to understand each other better. Finally, the last one on this slide is wait time. This is me waiting for students to form their answers in their minds, think about what their answer is, before me asking them to say it out loud. Next is assessment. Assessment isn't anything your child or you should fear. Assessment is necessary in my classroom for many different reasons. Assessment will first help me learn more about what and how your children are learning. It also helps me know how I am doing in the classroom. It gives me feedback on my instruction. Assessment gives me the evidence I need to modify my lessons to better meet your children's needs. It also helps me see if your child is achieving what I need them to be. Finally, it also tells me if the curriculum material, like the books and the worksheets or the applications, all the stuff I'm using in the classroom is ensuring your children's success. So there are different types of assessment that I will be using in the classroom during different times. I will assess your children throughout a lesson to see if they're understanding what I am teaching or if I need to spend more time on that subject. I will also assess after a lesson to see if they met our objective for that day. And finally, I will assess after units or chapters to see if they learn the necessary skills in order for me to move on. Assessment isn't just tests. There are many different kinds of assessments, such as observation, oral assessments, project-based assessments, portfolios, which are collections of students' best work, self-assessment, which helps your children reflect on their own work and their progress. And there are also tests. So your children, they are my students. And what is important to me is that everyone is learning and having fun and also making progress. Everyone is different and on different levels. It's not important to me that they all get on the same level, but that they are all learning and making progress. Math is for everyone. I want to make math fun and enjoyable, and I will work my hardest to ensure that all my students' needs are met. They all will have individual needs, and that it is my job to make sure that these needs are met by differentiating my lessons. Teaching is an art, and it's a passion. There isn't just one style to teach, and that's what makes teaching fun and challenging. So I know I covered a lot of information and material in my presentation today, so are there any questions for me right now? Oh, great question. I don't know if everyone heard that. So the question was, who created the Common Core standards anyways? So, very good question. I'm sure many of you are wondering, who created these standards that I will be teaching your children? So there are many different people and parties that were involved in creating the Common Core standards. It was a very long progress, and it required deep thinking by many different groups. First, there were national groups and state offices that were involved in creating them. But there were also different teachers that served on work groups and curriculum specialists from across the country that contributed to the creation of these standards. There were also representatives from national groups such as the National Council of Teachers of Math. A big misconception is that the federal government regulated the construction of these standards, and they did not. The federal government did not play a role in creating the standards. It was organizations and groups of teachers and curriculum specialists within the states that created them. And I want everyone to know and remember that the standards only tell us teachers what to teach, but not how to teach. So there are any other questions for me? Another great question. She asked, my child is a really gifted child at math. How will I challenge him in my classroom? So I plan to meet the needs of all my students in my class. I plan to teach to many different levels within my classroom. One way I can challenge your child is by presenting him with harder questions and to work on some standards that maybe will be taught the next year. This is one great thing about the Common Core standards. They are a progression from year to year. It's a transition from one year to the next, and I can challenge him by working on some of those standards that will be covered the next year or that are a little above grade level. Another way I can challenge him is by using applications that adjust to the students' level based on how they are answering their questions. It'll level him up and challenge him by asking harder questions, and it'll work on his math automaticity. So thank you all for listening and participating in my Welcome to Second Grade Math presentation. I'll be sticking around for a while, so feel free to ask me any more questions you have, and also please do not hesitate to contact me via email with any questions you have about this presentation or during the school year. I want to work with you to provide your child the best education possible. Thanks again. I look forward to meeting you all individually.